athlete.
I did like to compete.
Coach, congressman.
And I thought maybe I could help a little bit.
Mentor, leader, legend.
And I don't really worry much about that legacy.
Defining Tom Osborne isn't easily done.
Being a not so good person, that's what works for me.
For the next hour, this Nebraska icon goes on the record, rarely shared personal insights into his achievements, his setbacks, and a lifelong game plan that shaped thousands of lives.
Sometimes it isn't the length of your life, it's the quality of your life that's important. And
this is KETV News Watch 7 Chronicle, Tom Osborne. Good evening. Tom Osborne's very public life creates very few shadows. On some level, most feel they know the coach and where he stands. But those who know him best, even Osborne himself, say there is more to tell. It's a uniquely Nebraska story with its roots in Hastings, the community Osborne's father made home 7 decades ago.
He loved athletics, and so we had a house right across the street from Hastings College. So every day I was over there at football practice, basketball practice, track practice, and athletics really became a major part of my life, and probably more so than it even should have been, but I played them all. I just was never able to get away from athletics. I didn't plan to be a coach, but when it came down to choosing which direction to go, I just could never quite cut the cord with athletics, and was a grad assistant for Bob Devaney and just stayed on.
Those early years in Hastings made Tom Osborne the city's favorite son, and he is still just that.
This is his senior yearbook.
This is class of 55.
55. Oh, there he is. That's football.
Running an option round.
Running the ball, yeah. Running the football. Yeah, no face masks yet.
Greg Mays is a walking encyclopedia when it comes to Nebraska high school sports, and in particular, Tom Osborne. It may be because Mays teaches English at Hastings High, Osborne's alma mater.
If you're collecting Hastings High stuff, you're going to end up with Tom Osborne stuff. He's certainly the favorite son.
Mays' downstairs classroom is covered with memorabilia.
You know, this is from the 1954 state championship team. Coach Osborne's right there. He was the only junior starter on that team.
It looks hand-drawn.
Oh, yeah, it was definitely hand-drawn. It's definitely one of a kind. An all-state in basketball, not football. He was second-team all-state in football. He ran both the quarter mile and did the discus. Discus, state champ.
The school's trophy case is full of Osborne-era awards. A state championship team picture hangs on the wall. That's TO number 25. But basketball, football, and track weren't his only sports. There was also baseball.
With state baseball champions, he was a third baseman.
Okay. Was he any good?
Yeah, they were pretty good.
Osborne was pretty good in the classroom, too.
He was student council president.
And all of his achievements landed him in the National High School Hall of Fame. To let him in, though, the hall required a letter of recommendation.
It's like the highlight of my writing career.
And Mays got that call.
Which is a strange feeling to write a letter of recommendation for Tom Osborne.
Mays used as motivation these as-large-as-life photographs. The basketball shot honors Osborne's high school years, the football photo, his collegiate career. They hang in the halls of Hastings High. A copy of Mays' letter hangs in his classroom.
Every day when I walk into Hastings High School, I walk past 2 life-size portraits of Coach Tom Osborne. 2 8-foot by 5-foot gigantic blonde wood framed photographic monuments to a young man who is very special to this community.
Good letter.
Yeah, exactly. Must have been the letter. That's what I tell people.
Mays also tells people how the display went up decades before Osborne won his first national championship at Nebraska.
I think what makes it important is that they put those up right when he got out of college. They didn't put him up because he became the greatest college football coach in history. They put him up because they knew he was going to do something great, you know, and that's why they were put up, and that's why they've stayed.
But someone who would rather they go is T.O.
Well, I've actually been there and seen those, and it's a little embarrassing. And some kids don't even know who that is, you know. So, but it's nice of them, but I really feel it's time to replace those pictures.
Osborne went to college just up the road from his high school, graduating magna cum laude as a 4-year letterman for the Hastings Broncos in football, in basketball, and in track, where he liked to throw the discus but hated to run the 440, even though he was good at that too. Now, he had been recruited by other schools like Nebraska to play one sport or another.
He felt more wanted, I think, at Hastings College, and they would let him play both.
Right.
You know, and he was very comfortable there with those coaches.
Because he was very comfortable with the community. You see, his grandfather and his father both played for Hastings, as did brother Jack, and years later, his son Mike. In fact, on the north end of campus is the Osborne Family Sports Facility.
The football field's named after his family, the gym named after his family, mainly because he insisted it not be just named after him.
He grew up around here.
Yeah, he grew up right in here in this neighborhood.
The Osborne family lived here, just a block away from Hastings College on East 6th Street.
It's an East Side Hastings neighborhood. You know, the trees are big because it's been here for 100 years.
And for years, Osborne would run across the street every day, taking in anything athletic. It was the foundation for his famous future.
Why is this not like a national monument or something?
Well, I mean, because Coach wouldn't want it to be.
But his name is all over town, on the buildings and on the roads. Tom Osborne is so respected here, the state highway leading into town, 281, is actually called the Tom Osborne Expressway. And according to urban legend, in honor of Osborne's love of running the football on the expressway, passing is not an option.
What an amazing legacy. When you were a U.S. congressman, and that's like item number 7 on your resume, you know, as far as what people care about, that's pretty incredible.
What do you think Tom Osborne means to Nebraska?
You know, he to me personifies the best of us, the hard work and the modesty and that dry humor and success. You know, those are the best things about this place.
Greg Mays runs the Suiting Up Varsity Twitter site, all about high school sports. And he told me Tom Osborne at times was a little hard to coach. Osborne disagrees with that. But then he shared this memory from college.
The one time I remember there was an incident where I was a freshman quarterback. I was 18. And I mentioned a lot of these guys had come back from the Korean War. And so about half our team was 24, 25, 26, and I was 18. And we got down to the goal line, and this one guy was a running back. He was a good player, but he was hurt, and he thought he wasn't going to play. And he went out and he was drinking that afternoon. And so the huddle smelled like a brewery. So we got down to the 2-yard line, and he had scored in, I don't know, 15 consecutive games. And so that kind of was a big deal. And I didn't hand him the ball. I gave it to somebody else and scored. And the coach was a little upset, and he got me aside on Monday, and he wanted to know why I didn't give the ball to so-and-so. I told him, well, he'd been drinking. And so that was one time I was maybe uncoachable. You know?
Fast forward to present day. Osborne now watches one of his former players coach the Huskers.
There was a formula that worked here for a long time, and times have changed a little, but some of those same things are what is going to make this work again. And that's a lot of good people that care about this place, working really hard. It's toughness, it's dedication, it's work ethic. That's what Nebraska is, that's what the people of Nebraska are, and that's what this place is going to stand for while I'm here.
Scott Frost is intent on bringing Osborne's vision back to Nebraska football, and his mentor observes with admiration and keen interest.
And I think he's somebody who's honest with people. I think he relates well to people. I think he probably is somebody that most parents would want to have their son play for.
Next, how T.O. defines the culture of Husker football, his view of the fight to bring Nebraska's program back to national prominence, and Osborne's struggle to balance commitment with family.
I did miss some activities with my kids, which I regret.
Tom Osborne, a KETV News Watch 7 Chronicle special, continues. Leadership responsibility. His faith is a guiding force.
I do spend a little time in the scriptures every day, usually in the evening. and a little bit of time in prayer, meditation in the morning. And being a not so good person, that's what works for me. But other people might be able to get by better without it. But that seems to be helpful to me. So yeah, my faith has been very important to me, and I don't try to be ostentatious about it or try to tell people you got to do this or that. But when I was coaching, I did let my players one time a year, I'd say, well, you know, I'm going to make some decisions that are going to affect your lives, and so you better, it's probably a good idea that you know where I'm coming from. And if you feel that I'm inconsistent, if I'm saying one thing and doing another, I want you to feel free to call me on it, because I don't want you to feel that I'm somebody who's saying one thing, doing another.
During his coaching days, Osborne's drive would have overwhelmed most. Up at 5, meetings at 7, practice at 2:30, and more meetings until 10 or 11.
That went on Sunday and Monday. And Tuesday and Wednesday, we'd go home after practice. I'd take film home, have dinner with my kids, my wife, and then look at film for another 3 hours. And game days, you know, met with the players in the morning, went to the field and played, and watched film, watched the game film that night.
But your days, those were so long, and for so many years, 25 years as head coach. What did your family, how'd they put up with that? I mean, did you feel guilty at all about leaving them on to their own devices for so many times?
Yeah, I had Nancy carried a lot of the load, you know, but I guess you can always try to justify yourself in some way. But we spent about 85-hour weeks, about what it was for the most part. You tried to make up for it as much as you could. We had about 6 weeks in the summer where we didn't have that intensive schedule. Once we got our football camps over, we'd have some time. And but I did miss some activities of my kids, which I regret.
Anything stand out to you that you missed?
Well, my son Mike played football at Hastings College, and I probably only got to see 1 or 2 games in person a year, you know. I get the film of his game, and I'd look at it and offer some suggestions, which I don't think he appreciated. And but that hurt to miss those games, and some of the games my daughters played athletics, but we still, you know, Nancy really took good care of things, and we still spent a lot of time together when we could, so that was good.
The family at home to the family on the field, the challenges of Lawrence Phillips.
It seemed like he had enough things in his past he was just never able to overcome.
To the heartbreak of losing Brooke Berringer.
I was probably as close to Brooke as any player I ever coached.
Tom Osborne, a KETV News Watch 7 Chronicle special continues.
Amazing grace. Witnesses say it was a gusty afternoon, much like today, when Brooke Berringer and his passenger Toby Lake took off from this grassy airstrip heading northwest into the wind.
You could hear the motor pulling, but then I didn't hear the motor anymore, and the plane went like this, and that's when I says, whoops, I'm calling 911.
I love Brooke. Loved the type of person he was. And I think the thing that I was most impressed about Brooke was simply the fact that he enjoyed life so much.
The statue is a gathering point outside of Memorial Stadium. When we lost Husker punter Sam Foltz, players and fans instinctively came to that spot to stand next to Brooke Berringer and Tom Osborne. The coach carries Berringer's legacy with him every day.
Yeah, Brooke was really, you know, so often when somebody dies as a young person, then all of a sudden they become somewhat larger than life and special. And but in Brooke's case, it wasn't hype. I mean, he was genuinely that person. And So I was probably as close to Brooke as any player I ever coached, because I was with the quarterbacks every day in the quarterback meetings, and he was here 5 years. And so when he died, that was really a blow to everybody. It was kind of like losing a member of your family. But he had a real strong impact on the players, because when you're 18, 19, 20, you always think you're bulletproof and always think you're going to last forever. And so I think a lot of players began to think a little bit about what their life constituted, and they realized that Brooke had taken us to a championship in '94, and Tommy came in and played, of course, in that championship game. But then in '95, both Tommy and Brooke deserved to start. It wasn't either one of their fault. It wasn't Tommy's fault he was injured, and it wasn't Brooke's fault that he did the best he could. And so Brooke ended up being number 2. But the way he handled that, I think, really impacted our players, because he didn't complain. He didn't divide one side for another, and so I think that really set him apart. And so he had a profound effect on a lot of our players and a lot of the people in the state of Nebraska. So you'd have to say sometimes it isn't the length of your life, but it's the quality of your life that's important. And
Tom Osborne says another one of his former players lived a very troubled life. Osborne took a lot of heat for how he handled Lawrence Phillips, how he let Phillips back on the team even after Phillips assaulted his ex-girlfriend. Then and now, Osborne felt he had little choice.
So on the one hand, you had the publicity, it was a brutal beating. But on the other hand, the person that was involved with this said that he told one of the officials from the university that he did not hit her. And that was important. He did pull her down 3 flights of stairs. He shouldn't have done that. So he applied the standard that we would have applied to anybody, a 4th-team player, a 1st-team player. We suspended him. I actually suspended him longer than I would have had to, maybe 2 games. But he was suspended for 6 games, wasn't allowed to practice, wasn't allowed to go to the weight room or eat at the training table. He was totally, and then he had to do everything academically we asked, and counseling.
In 2005, in California, Phillips ran down 3 teenagers in his car, and he had assaulted another former girlfriend. He went to prison, and in 2015, he was charged with killing his cellmate. Phillips took his own life a year later.
I felt fairly good about him when he left here. You know, he went to the NFL and with a 1st-round pick, but it seemed like he had enough things in his past he was just never able to overcome. And you're not going to be able to save them all. I know that. So we did what we could.
But there are success stories, generations of Huskers who credit the coach with helping them become the men they are today.
I was an athlete, and I lean on my athletic background, and Coach Osborne was a guy that influenced that a lot.
KETV News Watch 7 Chronicle continues.